Hello and welcome to F1 Rolling Start with Ben
Hello.
and James. We're so excited for you to join us this week as we debrief the Imola Grand Prix. Max Verstappen owns this era.
He does.
If you're still clinging to the Piastri hype train, sit down. Just take a seat because Max doesn't care what car he's in. He's going to decimate. He won the Grand Prix.
You know, I was fully prepared for this race to remind me of how much I hate old school one DRS zone European tracks.
Yep.
And I was like, freaking Crofty's not even here because he knows this race is going to just be terrible. He's like, guys, if I got to pick two races to be off, it's going to be Imola.
Yeah.
I'll be there for Monaco because it's,
Right.
still.
It's the jewel in the crown, man.
I was fully prepared for it to be terrible. And then I was like, wait, this is pretty good.
Yeah,
It was pretty freaking good.
It was good. I think that, like, what to you made it feel so different this time? Because normally it's a parade. It's you qualify. Maybe there's some kind of crazy first line because one side of the track has more grip than the other. But then it's just kind of boring.
Yesterday during qualifying was kind of wild.
It was wild.
So we had those two massive crashes.
Yo, Yuki's crash was insane.
Literally,
we didn't even talk about that.
No,
Yuki's crash.
We didn't talk about it. Just start there. Dude, literally my boys, they only like watching the crashes because they're 5 and 3. And so I'm watching qualifying and they're like, Dad, are there any crashes? So I like rewound it all the way back to Yuki's crash and they were like, whoa. So obviously Yuki goes end over end.
And it spins around sideways, upside down, all over the place. It was wild.
It was an incredible moment to realize once again, like a couple years ago, Lance Stroll had a insane crash.
It was wild.
And he got up and walked away.
Yes.
And you realize you're like, oh, like the safety of these cars and the tracks are at such a level to where these guys can walk away and like get a little neck massage and they're okay. Like, insane.
It's crazy.
But yeah, so obviously Yuki crashes. That was a bummer for him, especially considering, he's in that second seat, which is a rotating door. And then freaking Franco Colapinto just
the golden boy of Alpine just comes out and just crashes in qualifying.
I was like,
oh my god!
And then Ferrari, in sequential fashion, get knocked out of Q2 by Stroll
in Italy
and Alonso in Italy. I was like. And I mean, you could sense the dread that Chuck had to face any reporter. To be
it
like,
was brutal.
Oh. But I was like, how is it that Stroll just knocked out these dudes? And that's a whole separate thing on Aston's pace when it came to what actually mattered. But no, I think it started yesterday. And qualifying was incredible. Just because of the fact that Ferrari was going to be starting way further back and was going to have to come hunting through the field, which they did. We'll talk about that later. Aston was out of place. Williams was ahead. And then we had a Max Piastri 1-2 combo. Like that, I think, set the stage for what happened today at the race. What stood out to you from qualifying?
I mean, I think from qualifying to the race, the one thing that we came into this weekend knowing is that Imola is Imola. It's old, it's skinny, and it has one DRS zone.
And it's his last year on the contract. It might not be back.
And we haven't been there because there was flooding and there's been some kind of this, that, and the other over the last few years. The drivers love it. They all said there's nothing like driving Imola.
I mean, it looks beautiful. It looks like an incredible racetrack.
100%. I think that the thing that really made this weekend stand out for me was the different tire compounds that Pirelli. So this is the first time we ever had the C6.
Yep.
Softest on the range, essentially a qualifying tire. And they ran the race on the soft and the medium of last year. And so what we saw was jeopardy in the tire deck. There was normalization throughout the field because of safety cars, tire changes, and teams holding out, pitting too early, and then there being a safety car. But how do you
so many got called out?
I mean, Leclerc was devastated. Alonso infuriated. Like it was just a wild. Sainz hung out to dry. I mean,
Russ even pitted at the wrong time.
Yes. And so it was jeopardy everywhere.
Yeah.
There was a couple of really good things. And one of the biggest thing that happened was that it was just a surprisingly great race weekend.
Yeah. Again, even as the race started, maybe about 15, 20 laps in, I was already writing my opening, and I was like, I'm going to rip this race so hard. And then I was like, wait, I'll save that for Monza, or no, I'll save that for Monaco. I'll save that for Monaco when we go and we can't actually race on a Sunday, and it all matters on a Saturday. But Saturday was dynamic. It set up an incredible stage for Sunday. Yeah. And then the DNFs, the virtual safety car, the safety car, all of that had a huge role to play. And then ultimately, we had a sprint race, 10 laps.
Yes.
Everything, to play for at the very end. And that, I think, just was, what made the race actually a really incredible race. I think one of the better races this season so far.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Let's talk about, before we jump into some heavy hitters, let's talk about Alpine for a second. So,
yeah, we haven't talked since they've made their big switcheroo.
No. So we come into this weekend with Jack Doohan out, which I will say you called it.
This guy.
I thought they would have until at least the Canadian
What did I say?
Grand Prix.
Do you remember the phrase I said?
I remember you said something along the lines of Doohan's done. Doohan is and he was done.
And again, I feel for the dude. It freaking sucks.
Oh, 100%. 6 races. That's it.
Yeah.
Done.
Yes. Done.
Doohan's done. Colapinto's in. This is Colapinto's calling card. This is what he does. This is what he did to Sargent. It came in mid-season.
He's just a shark, just lurking,
just
waiting,
hanging out.
He's
just
like, don't
in the
mind
depths.
me. I'm not gonna do anything. And he comes in, swoops in. Again, the guy's a good racer. And
but not this weekend.
Not this weekend.
No, not this weekend, because he comes out in qualifying and just destroys the car. I mean, you saw the pictures of it, dude. The entire front section was just up in the air. Oh, it was rough. The team's working their butt off. And there was just no sauce this weekend for Colapinto. And so it was a tough weekend for him. But then even before that, they've lost their team principal again.
Dude,
again.
Otmar was there just
out.
Trolling.
Dude,
he
Otmar was in the
walking around just trolling. And literally, Teddy Bear, Ted Kravitz was like, Otmar's here. And what does the team think? This guy was their longest running team principal of late. And they would look back now and be like, maybe we should have rid of this guy.
Dude. 100%. Yeah, but instead, Ollie Oaks is out.
Yes.
Now there's a whole bunch of drama attached to that, in the sense of it was on good terms,
reasons. All I know.
Personal terms. Apparently, allegedly, he was basically the front man for the Russians that were representing. Do you remember Uralkali?
Yes.
The sponsors for Haas.
Yeah, for Haas.
And the kid.
I remember then the war broke out.
Mazepan, Mazepan. Apparently, once Doohan was out, they had connections or something around it. I don't know. It's all kind of weird. But then there's also another rumor that he might be in the bid for the team principal of Cadillac.
I thought that when I saw that he left, I was like, I wonder if Cadillac has anything to do with this.
But I don't know how I feel about that, because maybe not. I mean, I'm sure there's got to be some kind of non-compete between him and some kind of gardening leave agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I know Adrian Newey somehow had a dream scenario, but that's Adrian Newey, and you get that when you're as good as he is. It would make sense that he actually would have some type of gardening leave,
Yeah. Well,
so your assessment of Alpine at this point, my assessment, and this is what I've heard in the commentary from Sky Sports and from others, is that Alpine essentially has said, look, we're 9th with 7 points. We have 1 point more than Kick. That's depressing enough, just that fact. And they said, listen, we are not going to to win this year. We're not going to really move up. We're going to use this year as an opportunity to test out our drivers.
Yeah.
So even with Franco, he only technically has 5 races.
Right.
I think it's going to be longer than that. I don't think they're going to whip Jack Doohan back in.
No.
But Alpine is essentially looking at this entire season as a wash already.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, we're just going to try things and test things and try to figure things out. And our focus is going to be next year when the regs shift and also our power unit supplier shifts.
Yep.
Do you feel like that's what they're doing? Have they written this season off?
I have no idea. I don't think they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think Gasly gets out there and he puts that car in places it shouldn't be every week. And, granted, it was a tough one this weekend. I think the weird thing for me about Alpine is it's just there's no leadership. And I feel like they're looking for a quick fix in an industry that doesn't really allow for that. It's not set up for that. And now they have Flavio back, who's like the bandit,
an executive consultant. I'm like, this dude's freaking
he's not hired by Alpine because he can't. He has a lifetime ban from being a part of Formula One. Yet somehow he can be the acting team principal. Yeah, it's a little tricky. That's like if Helmut Marko took
oh God,
got banned, and then all of a sudden he was like the interim CEO and team principal for Red Bull Racing. It would just be weird.
Yeah.
Except he's been banned for literally trying to rig Formula One races, and then now he's back.
Yeah, I mean, he's a character. He had some success. It's been a hot minute since he's had some success, though.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the success he has had has been prolific.
Yeah,
like he found Alonso. Yeah, he found Schumi.
Once again, I mean, like
that's a pretty big deal.
There's some success. It's still been a minute, though.
Yeah,
and Formula One has radically changed, and the role of the team principal has radically shifted.
Yeah,
it's gotten a lot younger. It's gotten a lot more technical, right? And there are some personalities. I think of Horner. I think of some of the others, but like Toto, obviously. But there's
for sure.
It's become a younger game.
Yes,
it's become a more technical and engineered, focused role.
100%.
And so Alpine at this point, I think, has to really decide moving into the future, like what are we doing?
Yeah,
here?
who are we is what they need to do. Yeah. And to me, Alpine has lost its identity. It was Renault.
Yeah.
And then they said, oh, well, we have the sports car, so let's name it after Alpine. Now it's the Renault Alpine team. And then now they're losing their Renault-ness. Mm-hmm. And so now they're Alpine with a Mercedes engine. And so it's just like, who are you?
Yeah.
You might as well just change your name to Frankenstein, because I don't know where you're pulling all of this from, but none of it seems to be working. None of it seems to be cohesive.
No.
And I think, unfortunately, there's a bunch of people working for that team who are probably really good at their job.
Yeah.
But there's no conductor at the front of that train.
No, I mean, and think about this too, and we mentioned this before, but Alonso and Piastri were at one point both on that team.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's nothing to snuff at.
Unreal. Like, imagine
talent.
an Alonso Piastri lineup.
That would be wild.
I mean, but obviously both of them saw the writing on the wall. And this was back when there was some sense of functionality to the team.
That was Otmar. Yeah.
Freaking Otmar there. And they both bailed because they had better options elsewhere. And so it feels like it's just been a slow spiral into a black chasm. And, the main people that feel like the collateral damage here are the drivers.
Yes.
And the drivers' careers. And so you think of Gasly, you think of Franco, you think of Doohan, these guys. And obviously Gasly is the lead driver and is a talented driver, but the environment or the ecosystem a driver's in is important. It impacts
100%.
how they show up in the car. It impacts how they're supported. It impacts how they're racing.
Yes.
And that feels like there's going to be damage there if these guys stick with this team and they can't escape out the back to another team.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like their careers are going to be impacted negatively.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's sad because Alpine is becoming one of those teams that just has fallen to the mediocrity and is hanging out in the back with Kick.
I have more optimism for Kick.
Yeah. Wow, that's saying something.
No, but I do.
Yeah.
I do. It feels like there's more direction. There's more leadership. There's less chaos.
Yeah,
there's more surety.
That's true.
They've got Audi coming in next year, right? Like it feels like there's a plan.
Their
for them
identity
to get out
is
of
solidifying. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. Alpine is still like in the wind somewhere where it's like you don't know who you are. We don't know who you are. Kick at least has like a direction, and they've got some leadership, and they've got some some good draw. I mean, I would put my money on Kick over Alpine, which is insane.
That's insane to say. That's insane to say. And you know what else is insane to say?
Say it.
This weekend, Oscar Piastri was an Australian Leclerc. He was all qualifying, no performance.
It's a painful thing to say.
He ended in P3. This weekend was McLaren's to take. Max decided to waltz in like a lunchtime bully and take their lunch money right off of their plates, flip the table they were sitting on, punch him in the face, and walk back out of the cafeteria. It was wild.
Here's the thing that McLaren still has yet to learn about Max. Now, this season is going to be dynamic. And there's been races, and we've talked about it, where we've said, hey, Max has kind of lost the edge.
Yep.
And guess what? Max, within the context of the team and the car, that's still true.
Yes.
Like, Red Bull is not this dominating team. And Horner even said it today when he's being interviewed by the Sky Sports team, was like, listen, we're not going for the constructors. We're focusing on the drivers. So like, the team as a whole has lost that bite. The thing, though, that happened today with Max and with McLaren is McLaren forgot that they can't fall asleep on Max.
1,000%.
You can't ever fall asleep on Max.
1,000%.
And here's what Oscar, the mistake he made at the beginning of that race was he said, oh, I'll get him later.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing that.
Exactly.
They've let Max get through. We'll catch up on race pace. And then there was a minute where it was like, oh, shoot, that's not going to be possible.
Yes.
Max actually has the pace on us.
Yes.
He actually is faster than us on this track, and we're not going to catch him. And I think that was a moment where it was like, oh, we misjudged this.
Yes.
But now it's too late. And then McLaren had things go sequentially wrong for them, whereas Max had everything
go right
for him.
Safety cars for Max.
Yeah.
Race restart for Max.
I mean, it wasn't just luck. It was luck, and it was pace, and it was also Red Bull strategy. And
it was impeccable strategy on Red
waiting
Bull's part.
for that virtual safety car, waiting for a safety car, and then waiting again, and then like there was that moment where McLaren has Piastri with old tires in P2 behind Max, behind the safety car, and Lando's got fresher tires, and he's like, guys, I'm not asking you to switch here, but
I'm looking at his tires, and they've been chewed to crap.
Seem a little more, so it's like, and in that moment, I can't fault McLaren, because here's the thing. Oscar's leading the championship.
Right.
We are, 7, 8 races in now?
Yep.
Like, Oscar's the driver's championship leader here. You can't tell the guy who's leading the championship, hey, your teammate who's right behind you has got fresher tires, let him go and fight Max. You can't do that. So, but
can't you? Why can't you? Why can't McLaren go to him and say, hey, let him pass?
They let him race.
Yeah, but at that point,
I know
they're on totally different strategies. The dude's got 20 laps on his tire. Lando's got 2.
I know.
I mean, and there's like 7 laps left.
It was 10. I think it was 10 when they restarted. But then by the time Lando passed, it was like maybe 6, 7 laps left, and it was like Max was 5 seconds ahead.
It doesn't make any sense.
But here's the thing, though. Do you think that McLaren made the wrong call? Do you think they should have told Oscar, the championship leader, hey, let your teammate through, let him chase Max? Do you think they should have made that call?
Was Piastri going to catch Max?
No.
Then are they in it for the constructors, or are they in it for?
At this point, they're in it for both.
Right. So,
and they have both right now.
Correct. But that's not guaranteed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, the constructors, unless.
So they left points on the table today. Because had Lando been able to be unleashed, he might have gotten Max. Now,
I don't think he would have.
Lando tried to get spicy and he didn't really make any headway. So maybe not, and maybe that's what they looked at, but I don't think it was the right call to make. I think they still have to go, we need to get as many points as we can. We need to bank as many as possible. And if that means that Lando wins the race, Max is in P2, and Oscar's in P3, well, that's more points than being in P2 and P3. And as a constructor,
more points for the constructor.
And as a constructor, that's what we need. That's the whole point of you being on the team, for them to go, we're making this call.
But here's the thing. There's still 132 points ahead in the constructors from Mercedes. And Mercedes was nowhere today. So they know their constructors fight isn't with Red Bull. So if I'm McLaren, I'm saying, okay, who in the drivers do I want to get more points? Do I want Oscar to get more points because he's leading, or do I want Lando to get more points? But I want Oscar to get more points because he's leading the drivers. Like, it makes sense. So
you think they were right to say, you guys race?
I think they were right to say, hey, guys, race. And I didn't obviously hear all the radio.
It was an insane takeover from Lando, by the way.
I mean, it was an incredible move, but also he had fresher tires. So, like, it made sense he was going to eventually get there. But I think they made the right call because they're like, wait a second. Our constructors fight is not with Red Bull. Our constructors fight is with Merc, and freaking Kimmy's out, and Russ is in 7th. So, like, the points haul here...
If we're being honest, it's not really a fight.
It's not a fight. We're 132 points ahead, and we're 8 races in. So, I think they're like, hey, Oscar has the right to defend P2 here, even if they're on different tire strategies, even if his deg sucks. Lando's going to have to overtake him.
They were lucky that was the case today, because I do see a future where they're backing themselves slowly into a box. As a leader, you know that 2 number 1 drivers is great until it's not.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to say until the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
There's going to come a time where they have to pick.
Well, they're going to, but they didn't have to today. Now, here's the thing. That's like a privileged position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
For you to be able to be like, oh, we have to pick between, which guy's going to win the race and which guy's going to win the driver's championship. Like, that's a very unique position for McLaren to be in, and not very many teams ever get there. I mean, talk to, Kick and Alpine and Williams and Haas and all these teams that only dream of having that problem. So I think today they didn't have to make the decision, but when they do have to make that decision, that may be like crossing the Rubicon,
right?
Because at this point, like, how much longer are 2 number 1 drivers who are both capable of winning the drivers going to stay on the same team?
Yeah.
We've not seen that in recent history.
Exactly.
So when they do say, because here's the thing. You don't want a team to decide who gets to win the drivers' championship. You want that to be decided on track.
No, and I think that's to my point today, is that they had Red Bull on a strategic level of the ropes, because they had one car behind them with fresh tires. They had Max out front, and they could have put the pressure on it, but instead they were waiting for Red Bull to make a mistake.
And
they were on the back foot the whole time. Like, they pulled Norris in. They didn't necessarily have to. There wasn't a massive delta between his times and Max's times. He wasn't losing. He wasn't gaining a lot of ground, but he wasn't losing a lot of ground either. And yet they pulled him in. And then a lap later, the VSC came.
Yeah.
And so he lost 28 seconds where he could have been opposed to 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just had a moment to be able to take the fight to Red Bull. Yeah. But instead, they just had internal squabbles. And then Max just kept going. Yeah. Because if they're fighting each other, they're not fighting the person that's ahead.
And this is where the mantra, we're going to let them race, is that they're going to have to hold that intention with those guys racing Max.
Exactly.
It's going to have to be bigger than the 2 of them racing each other. When they say we're going to let them race, it's going to have to mean we're going to let our drivers race Max.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I think to your point, they let him race today. I think they still probably, under the circumstances, made the right call. They're looking at data that we obviously don't have. Max was just miles ahead and genuinely had pace today.
Yeah.
In a way that Red Bull has been struggling.
Totally.
This entire season. So
totally. But you can also then make the argument, like, okay, so Oscar's 146, Lando's 133, and Max is 124.
Yes.
Even if Lando had taken P1 away from Max, Max would have gotten less points. He'd be further behind the both of them. So even making the constructor call, it's still a driver win for both of their championships because Max is pushed further away from the both of them. But instead, today, Max took a chunk out of Lando and he took a chunk out of Oscar.
Yeah, I did.
And data doesn't lie.
It's a hard call. Here's the thing.
What would you have done? Well, you were fine with their decision.
I think I'm fine with their decision. Yeah, because again,
I would have said it's racing. It's racing.
Oscar he's proven himself.
Yeah.
To be the lead of the pair.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the guy's in second. Yeah, he's got older tires, but at the same time, like I don't think either of them were going to catch Max.
Mm-hmm.
At least you're honoring Oscar and respecting his position to say, hey, we're going to let Lando fight you and we'll tell him to race it clean. You can race hard, but race clean. But like you get to defend. And that's a respectful thing for a team to do for the man who's leading the drivers' championship.
Yes.
I think it would be disrespectful to be like, hey, no, Lando's faster. So no, just let him race. So, I mean, hopefully this doesn't come to bite them in the long run. Mm-hmm. And if Max somehow wins by a couple points, which is very possible, it's quite possible.
Well, they bought an upgrade to the car this week.
They did.
And both him and Yuki, who smashed it to pieces.
I mean, P10 was it?
Said that the car was easier to find the balance with, which has been the biggest complaint of Max. And so for him to say that and then put it in first place on race day, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'm interested what the nature of the actual upgrade it is over a few different circuits. I mean, Max won here last year. It was close with Lando again, like
100%.
a second or two. And so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like over the course of a couple races.
Well, I feel like we've spoken about McLaren, we've spoken about Piastri, we've spoken about Lando. Before we jump into Max, I do want to just press in on Lando a bit. How do you feel like he feels after beating his teammate?
Yeah.
After such a long stint of not. Coming into this weekend, Oscar had officially matched.
Had overtaken how many races he'd won.
Yes, but last season, the one opportunity that they wanted him to work on was his qualifying pace. And he's currently out-qualified Lando on average this season. And so Lando's got that, plus he's beating him in the constructors, plus he's got the majority of the wins for this season. And now Lando comes into this weekend, if we're being honest, completely messes up in qualifying. Like can't pull it together. He's classic Lando, super hard on himself.
Yeah.
And then in the race, he ends up finishing in P2. So he ends up beating his teammate.
Yeah.
What's the story? Like, what's your thoughts there?
Lando said something in the press pen after where he said, I have been satisfied with my performances on Sundays. What I need to work on is Saturday.
Interesting.
And I thought that was a really interesting take. And it felt like an honest take. It felt like it wasn't.
This is what you always get with Lando, which is what we love.
Which I appreciate that. It felt like it wasn't like, self-depreciation. It was just, hey, I actually feel like I've shown up well on Sundays. The problem is I dig myself a hole on Saturdays. And so I think that's where Lando's got to make that adjustment. Oscar clearly made that adjustment.
Yeah.
And clearly now he's got the results on Sunday because of the work he's done on Saturday. And so that's where I think Lando's got to just tighten up. And it's not immense. Like there's some work to do there for him. But I think that's an interesting observation and it feels right.
Yeah.
It feels like he's not being overly critical. He's not digging himself into a hole mentally that he can't get out of. He's just saying, no, I actually think I'm doing well on Sundays. My focus needs to be Saturday.
Yeah.
How about you? Where do you feel like he needs to shift or focus?
No, I mean, obviously he's completely right. And he's self-admitted that he can't get it together during Q3 for whatever reason. What he said in the post interview with, I believe it was Lawrence Barretto, was kind of like, I mean, this is just the story, right? That's what Lando says. I can't put it all together in Q3. The car is covering that for him in most races because of its dominance and how well it is performing. But at what point does the label of future world champion come off of somebody like Lando? For 6 years, he was at McLaren, and it's a stretch. But some people are saying, when is McLaren going to realize that he is not the golden boy of F1? He just might be the next Daniel Ricciardo in an orange race suit.
He's got 5 race wins total for his career as of right now. I think it's 5, right? Because Oscar's got 6.
Mm-hmm.
So Danny had 8.
Mm-hmm.
Danny bounced around.
Mm-hmm. But 6 years in a car, and granted, the car makes a big difference versus Oscar's career.
I still think Lando, even though he's been with the team for a long time, he just had his first win last season. Mm-hmm. So he still has, I think, a lot of mileage before he's able to really get to that point where he's world champion. Now, again, he's in P2 right now. He's right there. Oh, I think the challenge though is so close. Oscar has gotten there so much quicker. Yeah, his on ramp has been a lot shorter. And now again, Lando was with the team a lot longer, and he's been with the team when it wasn't performing. So you could just say, well, Oscar just showed up. But here's the thing, though. Last year,
it's very different.
Oscar struggled, and this year he's like switched. Yeah. And like,
there's a difference between coming to a team 6 years ago where they were nowhere and coming to a team 3 years ago where they were nowhere and by the end of the season had completely turned it around. Oscar has only known McLaren in its now current glory years. Well, versus Oscar, who is stuck with the team through a lot of pain.
Yep.
And through a lot of struggle and a lot of broken promises from McLaren to the drivers. I mean, he's been there through Alonso. He's been there through Carlos Sainz, and he's been there through Danny Rick. And now he's got, Oscar by his side. And so I'm like, dude, is it just that you've got to figure out how to turn the page from like what I have known about Formula One to where I am now? And that's the difference, because Oscar is just, well, this is just who we are.
Yeah.
But Lando's the dude at the table going, well, let me tell you about a couple years ago. Let me show you these battle wounds real quick. Yeah. And so that's where my head is at. Is like, maybe there's just a mental shift that needs to happen of like, no. Not only am I a race winner, but I now have the team and the car for it as well.
He does. I mean, that's a really interesting point. And obviously, Lando has that experience with the team. I think it's the challenge for Lando will be Oscar for as long as they are both teammates, because obviously they get along and all that kind of great stuff. But Oscar has just gotten the jump this season in a way that if I was Lando, I'd be concerned with how quick this guy can make his race better, how quick he can perform. And how quick he can shift when he needs to. And again, even if you've got 2 number 1 drivers, like the team will eventually, their energy will go behind the one who's in front.
100%.
And it must. Like you have to support your lead driver. And so unless Lando can come out and actually lead and sustain a lead for the world championship over the course of several races, there's going to be that question mark.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be interesting to see what happens between the 2 drivers, but we gotta talk about another team.
Yeah,
because we were in Italy, which you will literally be in a few
couple weeks.
Oh, wow, so jealous.
Couple weeks,
and
gonna forget all about this place. I'll be back eventually.
Ferrari is still the most iconic team in Formula One.
Yeah.
What is devastating is that they seem to be allergic to trophies this year. It is
painful.
It's painful to watch an empire that seemed to be on the rise again, crumbling before our eyes.
Saturday was one of the more painful 1-2 knockout punches I think Ferrari's probably had in a very long time. Like, can you think back to a moment where they've experienced a Q2 knockout like that in that kind of style?
No.
By a team who is
by freaking
nowhere.
Aston Martin, dude.
No, it was, and you could just feel the pain both of those drivers are going through, being like, wait, what just happened? It happened so quick. It happened after the clock had already expired. Aston's coming around, finishing their lap, and they just knock Ferrari out. And so Saturday was incredibly painful. I actually think there is some hope here for Ferrari. So Ferrari,
before we jump into hope, we have to talk about post-qualifying Hamilton and Leclerc, because Hamilton
just deep depression,
televised in Ferrari red, televised to the entire nation, which we all know the Will Buxton, famous quote. It's like in Italy, it's the Catholic Church and Ferrari. Those are the two religions in Italy.
Yes.
And he gets on, he goes, this is just devastating. Charles Leclerc, good old Chuck, gets on there and says, what do you want me to do with this? On national television to all of Italy, just broadcast it. All of them going, just yelling and throwing things.
There's plates of pasta hitting the walls across Italy, wine glasses shattering.
And then Hamilton somehow is fourth by the luck of the safety cars.
So that's where
Leclerc
I think
in sixth.
They fought back from a disastrous Saturday.
Yeah.
Now, again, Chuck was still immensely frustrated with his P6, and he gets past, or he has to give up the place.
Yeah.
This is semantics to Albon on the last lap. So Williams finishes ahead of him. Now, again, we have to think of Williams differently. We'll get to them later. But a Williams in no universe should ever be finishing ahead of a Ferrari, especially when Ferrari's
not in any recent universe.
Not in any recent, especially when Ferrari's been so clear about its ambitions this year for the drivers and the constructors. So Chuck's naturally upset, but Chuck was also sick this week. Chuck missed some of the early days. I believe he missed the media day. Like, he was sick. So I think part of it is just him getting over being sick. But Hamilton freaking fights back. He gets all the way up to P4. Now, here's the one thing that was still a little sobering for Ferrari. Hamilton was stuck behind Antonelli in that Mercedes for 34 laps.
Bro.
And
he was livid.
When Oscar had to work his way back through the field like a butter knife.
Yes.
One lap.
Incredible.
And just passed him. And then Hamilton was still stuck behind Antonelli for a few more laps. And I was like, oh, that in and of itself was just a snapshot into the delta between McLaren and Ferrari. Yes. And that's like, I know you said y'all want to be champions this year. That's what a championship car looks like.
Yes.
And a championship car, it's one lap. 34 laps.
34 laps he sat behind there.
Behind a rookie.
Yes.
In a Mercedes. So again, that if I'm Hamilton, I'm happy about the P4. I'm happy I finally got around him. But also, that's a moment I'm gonna take with me from this weekend and be like, team,
what are we doing?
What? And that's where some of the frustration should come from. It's like, how the F did I not get past this guy? And then freaking McLaren just is like, it's like it was nothing.
Yeah.
So that was a moment where I was like, that's a sobering moment you should hold on to, and you should go fix. Or Ferrari, go just play that on repeat in front of your team for the next 3 months until you fix that problem. Yeah. That's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, they were outpaced by Williams.
Another problem.
Williams is on the rise and the most funded team in the history of the sport. He's on the decline and being outpaced by Williams. Williams was nowhere a few years ago. George Russell was pretty much in tears after every single one of his races in the paddock.
Oh, Russ.
He was begging them to not make him finish races. They would literally shut the race off, and they wouldn't even make the final lap. They wouldn't even end and actually complete a full race distance for multiple races in a row. That's how bad they were. They were sued by their title sponsor for making them feel like they weren't even a real Formula One team because they were never anywhere.
Yeah, it was rough.
It was terrible. And
really
now
rough.
They beat
a Ferrari. I mean, Sainz, if he hadn't have been called out with a pit stop,
yes,
would have been up there as well, fighting with both Ferraris as well. It's quite possible they could have both finished ahead of Ferrari on pace.
Well, here's the thing. Williams legitimately outqualified them at Imola.
They did.
Okay. So this is a massive problem.
Yes.
Because we've just entered into the first welcome to Europe. It's the triple header of the tiny tracks that shouldn't be on. So we're going to Monaco next.
Oh, yeah.
Where Chuck won last year. It's Chuck's home race.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to possibly see two Williams finish ahead of the Ferraris, because if you can't qualify at Monaco ahead of them, you're sure as hell not beating them in the race.
Oh, you're done.
You're toast.
Yeah.
It's a procession on Sunday at Monaco. And even when it rains, they generally cancel it. So
they will have
happens.
2 required pit stops this year.
Doesn't mean anything.
There's potential.
They had that last year.
I don't think they had it last year. I thought
one of the races they instated that because of the heat. I think it was Qatar.
Okay.
And it really was just like, okay, so now we just know what everybody's doing.
For Ferrari, though, still.
Yes.
Like, you should be concerned walking away, even though Hamilton's happy. I got P4, yay. It's just like.
But that was a fluke in and of itself. That was luck beyond luck. That car did not deserve to be in P4.
No. Because, again, there was 2 teams that out-qualified Ferrari. One, it was real. One was a fake. Aston was a fake. That wasn't real, and that was and again, they got unlucky, but that still just wasn't real. The pace wasn't there. Williams, the pace was real.
Right.
So, like, that's where, again, Ferrari right now in the constructors, they're 4th. They're going to pass Red Bull soon.
Mm-hmm.
They're only, 16 points behind Red Bull. Williams is significantly further back. But it's not impossible.
No, it's not impossible
that Williams,
at all.
if they keep this up, and now that Sainz
is back,
he's
man.
back. He's
back. He's gotten comfortable with the
car.
team. He's feeling good in it.
Yep.
He's more and more confident every single week.
Ferrari legitimately needs to look behind their shoulder, and they need to be aware that Williams, even though they've only got 51 points, they're still a ways back.
Yes.
That's quickly going to be cut into, and their lead's going to diminish if they can't figure this pace funk out. And again, like, they've had 2 podiums this year. 2.
Yeah.
Red Bull, which is, their car is, again, a tractor this year that Max is having to wrangle.
Exactly.
They've won twice.
Correct.
Max has won twice.
Correct.
So this is where, again, luck was on the side of Hamilton today. They were able to drive through and get better finishing positions than where they started in qualifying. But if you're Ferrari, you can't be comfortable.
No.
Right now. You've got to be like, what the heck do we got to do to fix this?
Exactly. And what are they going to do? Like, are they going to give up for the rest of the season? Is Ferrari actually going to pull something out of their hat? Are they going to come to Barcelona with a bunch of upgrades and they're going to go for it? Or are they just going to resign and start going 2026? You can't do that. We're 6 races in.
No.
Like, this is wild, but they are flubbed it all season. And it's heartbreaking because we wanted them to take it to McLaren. We expected them to take it to McLaren. That was the story. This was Hamilton's best chance to get his 8th world title was this year. And here we are. And it's not happening. It's not even close.
It's painful to call it right now, but yeah, they're in 4th.
Yes.
I think they'll fight with Red Bull for sure. They'll overtake Red Bull because Yuki can't score
No,
higher
it's the
than
curse
10.
of the second Red Bull seat.
So they'll beat Red Bull, but they're going to be further back from Mercedes. And Mercedes at this point, Mercedes has a tough road ahead if they want to even try to go for constructors. And the chances are they're already 132 points back. They're 132 points back.
Unless they channel all of the energy.
It's not going to happen.
Of the gods into those two drivers and their cars. It's not going to happen.
Like McLaren would have to
supercharges
Martin,
it with his.
They would have to Aston Martin it for Mercedes.
They have to pull the old Lance Stroll reverse engineering. Oh, how do I bring upgrades and make our car worse?
But at this point, Ferrari, their best bet this season is to fight with Mercedes. Now that could be interesting.
Because
again, obviously these guys fought last year, but Hamilton's on the Mercedes thing. Here's the side of it though that you don't want if you're Hamilton. So Hamilton did say something because he was getting pissed by the speculations from the media. Rightfully so. This guy has been there. He's been the man in the arena.
Yep.
The one who has, had the victories, had the defeats. He's still there. And meanwhile, anyone who has any commentary around F1, including us, has no idea what the hell it is to go through what he's been through. But at the same time, someone asked him, when do we judge your performance with Ferrari? Like, when are we allowed to do that? Someone asked him that. When are we allowed to judge your performance with Ferrari? And he said, when my time with Ferrari is over, you are then allowed to judge my performance with this team.
That's a great answer.
He said, this is a stepping stone. He's like, this season, these races are stepping stones towards what we plan to achieve together. And I thought that was actually a fantastic answer.
That's a great answer.
Hey, it's like, these are all things that we are going to build upon. And again, the China sprint, that wasn't real. That he won, but it wasn't indicative. It wasn't real.
No, it wasn't indicative of the car.
Fake news, baby. It was fake news.
Yeah.
But it was a moment where I think fans got excited. We got excited.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to see Hamilton in red on the top step. But I think that response it's noteworthy to be like, hey, let's let this thing breathe a bit. My only feedback to Hamilton and to his team is, you should have said that at the beginning of the season. The problem is you didn't.
So now it just sounds like you're trying to spin it.
The problem is you led with, we're going to go for the drivers, we're going for constructors, Forza Ferrari, we had the best driver pairing. So it's like,
what Ferrari does every year. They say every year because they don't accept just winning. They want a championship.
Of course. And this is my one critique. My one critique of the man is, yes, that's fine. Start with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Start with some humility and say, hey, guys, building blocks. We're building something great. Low expectations this year. Don't freaking Fred Vasseur come out and say, no, we're going for drivers.
We're going for the drivers and the constructors. Yeah.
And
we're gonna win the constructors and we're gonna be P1 and P2 in the drivers. Bro,
if you put the standard up here, you hold yourself to that standard, we can hold you to that standard.
Exactly. If you said it,
then
I'm just talking about what you said. That's all.
Anyway, that's all I have to say about.
Yeah, Ferrari was a joke, and it was I wouldn't want to. It's a big letdown for Italy as a whole because Ferrari let him down, and Antonelli had a really poor weekend.
Yeah,
but before I want to get to our F2 team of the week, but before we do that, we got to talk about Goat of the Week. Yes, so Goat of the Week me is, it's got to be Max Verstappen. It's Max's world. And McLaren is renting space in his garage. That's what it felt like this weekend.
But this is the roller coaster of this season.
Yeah, but this is GOAT behavior from Max.
It is.
This is what we've been saying. Max was losing his Maxness.
And we said that. And we got some feedback from some fans.
A lot of feedback. And there's a lot of feedback. We listened, but we didn't care.
This is clickbait. Well, you're clicking.
We apparently rage baited. So, okay. But anyway, Max.
But it's true.
Yeah. But we've been saying Max. It's not that Max sucks. It's the freaking John Deere that they've strapped him to this year.
And it's the ecosystem of Red Bull right now.
100%. It's everything. Max is still Max. There's this weekend define that for me.
Yes.
And when you're looking for GOAT behavior,
it's GOAT behavior.
It's GOAT behavior.
This is Hamilton behavior when he has a car that can back him up. This is Alonso behavior when he has a car that can back him up. This is the behavior of champions.
Yes.
That overtake of Piastri was brilliant.
Prolific.
It was
prolific.
It was pure just courage. It was late braking at its best.
Yes.
It was giving space while forcing your will upon another driver and then just running away. And we didn't see Max the entire race until there was a virtual safety car and a safety car. Because that was the only moment the camera caught up to him. He was gone.
He was gone.
And
even
after the safety car after the second restart behind the safety car, it was still a done deal. He was 2 seconds ahead by like the first lap of it. And so
he waited for Piastri to blink. Piastri blinked. Just gone. Just gone. No drama, no wheel spin, just clean overtaking, split millisecond reaction time.
Yep.
Overtakes where David Coulthard, who used to drive for McLaren and Red Bull, he was like their debut driver. He was like, I can't believe I just saw what I saw. Like, you could just imagine him standing up in his seat going like that. What he did was, you don't know that you're going to do that until the opportunity arises. And then once you do it, there's no backing out of that.
Yeah.
If Piastri even blinks or twitches the wrong way, they're both done. And Max nails it and flies away. He kept the McLarens behind him for 60 plus laps.
63
They
laps.
might as well have been his interns trying to find him a Red Bull after the race. Like, it was embarrassing what he did for them. He put them over his knee and he spanked them this week. It was wild.
No, I mean, Max was Max. He was inevitable in the best way. And here's the thing. Again,
he's full Thanos,
dude. I freaking here's my rage right now. And I'll lean into the rage bait thing for a second. I have been a Max fan since the moment I stepped into F1 as a fan because of who Max is and how he shows up. My frustration and my anger is with the environment in which he has to race on that team.
Yeah.
And so the team over the last seasons have not supported him in the way that he deserves to be supported.
Correct.
This guy is GOAT. This guy is one of the best of all time.
Agreed.
He deserves to have a number two who can hang with him, who can
100%.
have his back, who can be his wingman. He's going to be the number one driver. That's going to be undisputed. But he deserves to have a solid number two. Team hasn't been able to get him that.
Yes.
The team has failed in that way. The team's interpersonal drama and their crap has created an environment that Max has had to navigate where he's got his dad, he's got Horner, he's got freaking Helmut Marko, all men who he has relationships with.
Yes.
Good relationships, personal and professional relationships with. And he's having to navigate this insanity. Max doesn't deserve that.
No.
So my frustration is not with the fact that Max can't race anymore. That's not it. My frustration is that he is undeniable. And the environment that he has to operate in keeps putting up roadblocks and barriers and keeps denying him of his greatness. That's my frustration.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing for Max right now is that it's looking like with Red Bull and him being there, it's going down the road of what we see with Alonso right now. Alonso is an incredible talent.
Yeah.
Albeit 40-something years old. It's
ages well.
It's one of those things where it's like he just doesn't have the machine under him.
No.
When he had it a few seasons back when they were at the beginning and they were taking it, he was almost winning races. I mean, what he did with that Aston Martin against Checo in Brazil was incredible.
Oh,
that race was, and we were both like standing up and yelling like it was wild. But when you just don't have the car, you don't have the car. And no matter how good of a driver you are, you can't polish a turd. And that's what that Red Bull has been. Yeah. And we are yet to see if this upgrade package that they brought to it that has caused there to be more balance in the car will give Max the machinery that he needs. But again, I only think that's part one of the problem. Part two is the team itself.
What needs to be done on the team side of things? Because again, can I just answer my own question for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
What I think Red Bull
let me
needs
check
to
with
do,
the person that makes the rules.
What I think Red Bull needs to do,
the producer's saying yes,
is separate from Helmut Marko. Get this guy out of there, because this
Helmut's
is the guy.
The problem? Walk me through that. Why is Helmut the problem?
Helmut's one of the problems, because Helmut
he's
the driver.
He stirs the pot.
He stirs the pot. He's unreliable. He's the one
he's
that
in
all
with the head honchos
drivers,
back in HQ.
He's the one that all the drivers need to come through. So he's in charge of that second seat. Helmut's the guy that's having a huge decision making at the table with who gets that second seat.
So Ben's going after Helmut Marko this week.
I'm going after Helmut. Max needs a driver who can have his back.
Yeah.
Because again, McLaren, he is having to chase down McLaren.
Right.
And when McLaren has the pace, today they didn't, but when they do, they just 1-2 punch him. And he can't defend against that. And that's not fair to Max. If he had a second driver who's not, back in 20th. Again, Yuki went from 20th to 10th. Huge. And after like that insane crash mentally, to be able to just lock in and put that out of your mind and come back into the points, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Good on Yuki. He's still 10 places back. You're not getting any support from your boys.
Yeah. So
I think the team, I don't understand why they're sticking with Helmut, especially considering the fact that he's like in charge of their, up and coming drivers.
Right.
Their up and coming drivers haven't been good.
Well, yeah. Well, that's interesting, right? Because like Helmut Marko takes responsibility for all of the wins that Max Verstappen does, but blames all of the rookies when they don't. And Red Bull doesn't develop drivers.
No.
They develop drama. Albon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Liam. All drama. It's all drama.
Danny.
It's all drama. We're yet to see somebody just come in like Max did. And so maybe that's why Helmut has it, because he's the one that spotted Max, brought him in. And so because of that,
he's got to have something in his contract. And I think Max might even have something in his contract too.
Yeah, Max loves Helmut.
That's where I think, but again, this is to the point about the environment that Max has had to navigate. Max loves Helmut. Max loves his dad. I don't know if he loves Horner, but Horner's his boss. So the professional, but like Max
loves the paychecks he gets from Horner.
Yeah. So like, but all these guys at different points have hated each other.
Yes.
And probably still do.
Yes.
And so like, that isn't a good environment for, and no GOAT deserves to be in that type of environment.
Right.
It's not healthy. You're having to fight uphill. You're having to like constantly go into the wind. You don't really have the wind at your back in the way that you deserve to. And that's where like, my frustration is with Helmut, my frustration with the team. And ultimately it's the car too. And I think, we saw Adrian bounce, and like, are we surprised the car isn't what it was?
No.
Like, are we connecting those dots at some point?
Yeah.
Like Adrian's gone. And your car now is a roller coaster from one week to the other.
It does make Red Bull feel like a bit of a house of cards.
Dude.
It's just waiting for the wrong gust of wind to completely cause the whole thing to fall down.
There's no consistency. One week you and I are saying like Max has lost, his edge because of the car. And then this week we'll be like, oh my God, like he's like the car and him finally synced up. We shouldn't have to be going on this roller coaster ride with Red Bull. Like a couple seasons ago, you freaking won every single race but one.
Yes.
Where is that level of clockwork consistency? Oh, Adrian Newey left the building.
Let's track this back.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You lost Adrian.
Whitman's gone. Yep. It's all happening. People are popping off.
That's my rage rant on Red Bull.
That's good. I like a good rage rant on Red Bull. I don't think that's what it's called, and we're old and dads. It's called rage bait, but that's good. It's rage rants, clickbait. I think you called it too, which is false and funny. No, you're super hip with the kids, man. You're Gen Z, right? Yeah.
Don't you ever?
Okay.
Don't you ever?
F2 team of the week. F2 team of the week for me is Mercedes. This is a tough one because Mercedes is second in the constructors.
They are.
And we've praised them every week up until now.
Yes.
Because they have. So I had to ask myself, why am I so disappointed? And I think the hard thing is that we've praised them because Russell has just kind of been there to clean up P3.
Well, you're disappointed because you're a Mercedes fan.
And I'm a Mercedes fan. And they failed me this week. And here's the thing is that Russell has more podiums this year than he did all of last.
That's
pretty
stunning.
amazing.
That's incredible.
That's pretty amazing.
What a turn of fortunes.
However, when you're only finishing in P3, anything below that just puts you straight back into the mid pack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they were finishing in P1 or P2, and then they ended this week, and it was just tragic.
Worst performance
Tragic.
year.
Worst performance. It felt like the worst strategy.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like Russ was describing the car like he was like, is something broken on the out lap? Like on the reconnaissance lap. He's like, dude, something's not right.
Well, something was broken on Kimi's car. He just pulled it over on the side. He's like, I'm just going to park it on the lawn and just walk.
Like, done. And I'm like, what the heck happened this week? And I know that it's bound to happen once or twice in a season. It's bound to be one of those weekends.
Hopefully this is their one-off.
It did not feel like it was necessary this weekend. It didn't feel like that for me. That's who my kind of failure of the week was.
Yeah.
They were just present. Like George finished in 7th. I forgot he was in the race most of the time.
Oh, most of the times we forget he's in the race because he's like P3, P4, and is just kind of like sneakily, getting on the podium.
Yeah.
This time we forgot he was in the race because, I don't know, we were watching Williams overtake Ferrari. And we're watching, the McLarens fighting for, the front. So it's like anything below that. But also think about this for a second. Williams was also ahead of not just a Ferrari, but of Mercedes.
Yes.
So Ferrari obviously is, like, oh my God, what do we do? Mercedes also at some point has to be like, oh shoot, wait, Williams? We now have to worry about Williams?
Right, exactly.
Do you
Which
feel
they
like
do.
They legitimately do.
They 100 have to. Worry.
They legitimately do. And again, Kimi is sensational. He's gonna be a Max or a Hamilton as if he continues on this trajectory. But Williams they've got 2 phenomenal drivers. So even though Mercedes is ahead and Williams isn't going to catch them, like Mercedes now has to be like, oh shoot, Williams may be outscoring us,
right?
Which is going to put us at risk to teams who could catch us,
correct.
Red Bull, Ferrari, etc. So, do you feel like this weekend was Mercedes slipping, or was it just a one-off? Are you concerned? Where are you at with how they performed this weekend?
They brought a front suspension redesign, front wing modifications, aerodynamic enhancements, all to address previous weaknesses. And I don't think it's working.
It would appear not.
We go to Monaco next week. And
Monaco, you can't.
What are you going to do? You can't
yeah.
really bring any upgrades. They
Spain
start
would be the next
season.
one, I think.
Barcelona is where we're going to see where Mercedes truly is, and we're quickly approaching the summer break, and so we need to. And when I say we, I mean Mercedes, my team. We need to make a strategic move in regards to: are we doubling down on performance for the rest of this year? Like, do we legitimately think that we are going to get overtaken? Do we really believe that we can take it to McLaren? I don't think they really believe in their heart that they can take it to McLaren.
No, it's just math.
But do we want to use this season with Kimi to really go after solidifying P2 in the constructors? Because that's what they need to do.
They really need to, because at this point, if Ferrari can get their head out of their butt, they have the ability to catch Mercedes.
They can catch them.
And overtake Mercedes.
And if McLaren keeps quietly sweeping up all of these points every week, if Mercedes falls back and back and back, then they're not going to end where they want to end.
No, absolutely.
And I think that's my hard thing, I really want Mercedes to just kind of dig themselves up and above this step. Because right now, on paper, it looks like it should be Mercedes and McLaren was what we're talking about, but really we're talking about McLaren and Max.
We are. Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, we need to get into Mercedes being Mercedes again.
Agreed. Can I talk about my F2 team of the week?
Sure.
We've referenced them, but I want to just go a little bit deeper. So not only were they the F2 team of the week, they were also the unluckiest.
I think I know who you're talking about.
The unluckiest of them all. It was Aston Martin. Here's the thing. I'm a sucker for a good story. And when Alonso,
you are a sucker for a good story.
When that man qualified P5 and did it in such phenomenal style, I was like, oh, it's good for him to be back. This guy still doesn't have any points. This guy has struggled this year. And Alonso's one of those guys, I think he probably has a better team environment than Max does, honestly, as far as less
100%.
drama. Now he's got to worry about Stroll, but Stroll's the one who's been getting points.
Stroll doesn't have any drama attached to him.
Drama's like, I just show up, race. But Alonso, I see him and like I'm like, oh my God, they brought an upgrade. Maybe Adrian Newey listened to Ted Kravitz and just sprinkled some fairy dust, took an hour or two and his notebook and like threw something to this car, threw it a bone. Maybe there's a chance they're actually going to get like solid points.
Yeah. It looked that way. They out-qualified the Ferrari.
And here's the thing. Here's why I thought this was real, because Stroll was right there.
Yeah.
Stroll was right there. And
I was like, if Stroll's there, this can't just be Alonso
Stroll
magic.
Is out qualifying Ferrari. This isn't a one-off Alonso thing. So Aston on Saturday is just, it looks like they finally escaped this season from hell, only to return to purgatory on Sunday. Sunday was just so unlucky for these guys.
Yes.
They couldn't catch a break. They freaking just got called out on the wrong strategy. Then they got stuck. And
Alonso's brakes were on fire. Literally I was like, on fire.
Is this
Alonso
Mario
is elite,
Kart?
and his car has the structural integrity of a wet blanket.
Dude,
like, it is awful.
My boys 5 and 3 were watching it, and I was like, it looks like we're watching freaking Mario Kart or something. Like, and this car is going to turn into like a Phoenix car or something. I was like, what? They're like, wait, his car's on fire, Dad. I'm like, yeah, I know his car is on fire.
Yeah, it's $1 billion project to sit in the midfield, at the bottom of the midfield.
It was so painful to hear Alonso just lamenting.
Oh, I don't think that's lamenting. He was livid. He was
raging.
He was raging.
That was a true rage.
We don't normally hear that.
No.
And he just came radio open and
cussing.
Just ripped his team a new one.
They got so unlucky, but also I think the pace in qualifying, I'm not confident it would stand up on a Sunday yet.
No.
We're not going to see truly in Monaco unless they can get that pace again in qualifying.
Well, the only reason why they got that pace in qualifying is because they decided to put the medium tires on instead of the softs. And so they went out there and ripped on the medium tires.
They did, but they also technically brought an upgrade.
Yeah, they did.
So
but we didn't know which one it really was.
No,
but
yeah,
now,
so it's hard
in hindsight,
to know.
we go, nah, it was the tires.
So this is where it's like unlucky, the tires. It felt like Saturday was a false flag. So there was all this expectation.
Yeah.
And I'm a sucker because, again, I want Alonso.
We want Alonso.
I want
him to win.
I want him to get points. I don't want him to win, just get points. And so for me, that's the biggest delta of disappointment between a Saturday and a Sunday is Aston. And again, I hope that the upgrade is real, but I don't think we're going to know if it's real for a couple more races. So they're my F2 team.
Yeah, I mean, I call Aston Martin the most expensive disappointment in F1. It's a team that promised to challenge Red Bull. That's what their promise was.
It looked like they could
a
couple seasons ago.
They are getting dusted like Williams in 2004. It's like, remember 2023 when Alonso was winning podiums, when he was saying we could take this car to the title, move forward to 2025.
Phenomenal.
And they're fighting for freaking P13 like it's a Black Friday sale at Best Buy. It's awful,
dude. And also, I mean, if imagine if you were to tell Alonso, hey, by Imola, you're going to have 3 DNFs.
Yes.
Oh, and by the way, those 3 times you DNF, your buddy's going to score points. Stroll's going to be the only one of you that's going to score points so far. So Aston's got 14 points. They're 7th, but they're still behind a Haas. They're behind a Williams. They're not fighting with Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren.
Yeah.
They're hoping to God Racing Bulls doesn't catch them, which Isaac Hadjar is scoring some points. He's been a little more consistent. He's got, three times that he scored this year, just as much as Aston has. And so it's one of these moments where you're just like, oh, you hope to God next year's where the shift happens and we truly do see Adrian work what he does, his magic, and bring a car that can honor the talent that Alonso has. But it was painful today just to hear
100%.
that kind of anger and frustration come from someone who deserves a lot better and isn't getting it right now.
Yeah. Well, you just look at it and you go, all this budget for what? All these changes, new wind tunnel, Dan Fallows, ex-Mercedes crew, like all of these people, and we haven't seen anything. If it doesn't happen with Adrian Newey, who can turn that ship around?
Oh, Adrian is the one that is going to turn it around. And if he can't, then no one can. Legitimately. If Adrian Newey can't turn your car around,
yes.
But guess what? He's going to turn it around.
Yeah. My question to you is, what do you think the first question they ask in an Aston Martin strategy meeting is every week? Because I think I know what it is.
Who is asking the question of whom? Is it?
They're asking it of each other. The drivers leave and they just go, okay, guys, so how are we going to get Lance into Q2 this week?
I would think the question would be, okay, guys, how are we going to get another driver into Lance's seat? How do we make that happen? How do we
did anyone talk to Lawrence again? Did
anyone went out with him on his yacht?
Daddy's team, Daddy's dreams, bro.
Daddy Stroll. Pope Stroll, please.
You can't spell Aston Martin without Stroll tax. It is terrible. Lance Stroll has been dragging that team down like a sandbag in a speedboat.
But dude, here's the thing. And again, I like yes and yes. But the guy, he's the only one who scored points. It feels like it's like a
I know.
It feels like it's a sick joke.
It is a sick joke.
And again, like
Alonso just had an unfortunately unlucky season.
It feels like all of like the Alonso magic on those races he's DNF'd somehow like went over onto Stroll and somehow willed him to points. I don't know how else to explain it. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh man, what else? What are we missing?
I mean, I don't. The only other thing I would say that's just worthy of notation is Isaac Hadjar. As far as rookies,
man, that was tough.
It's a notation. Here's the thing though. He scored.
Yeah.
And of all of the rookies, he actually has been kind of performing well. Like
him and Antonelli are the two definitely.
Those are the ones right now
where you feel like it goes. Yeah. I think for him, what was cool is that he held up a lot of people. I think the track helped him. And I think Racing Bulls has been one of those quiet teams that has kind of like just been sweeping up some points here and there.
He was a better teammate to Max this race than Yuki was able to be.
Yuki failed so bad trying to defend against Oscar.
It just was what it was. But like again, like Isaac, I thought of the rookies this race had a solid race.
Yeah.
Worthy of notation. But other than that, I don't have any other notations from this race.
I mean, the only other rookie we've talked about is Antonelli because his car died and it was brutal. Yeah. And that's bound to happen.
It is.
Man, next week is Monaco.
The great procession. They might as well. Here's what they should just do at Monaco. They should have the Crown Prince of Monaco, forget his name, in the safety car out in front the entire race.
Man.
And just he's the one out in front riding. They should bring the top down. He should just be waving to folks as he goes. That's what it should be, because guess what? That's what Monaco is, and Monaco's not going to change.
Yeah.
And unless they overhaul that race,
which they should,
it's not going to change it.
You mandate pit stops, 2 pit stops, so that
mandate 3 different tire compounds.
It doesn't matter.
Mandate freaking like a Joker lap.
Yes, a Joker lap would be sick. I don't know how you could time it from a safety perspective on the rejoining of the track, but in saying that, they can definitely figure it out.
Or, they rejoin the track from the pit lane all the time.
Like, how do we have tracks in the Middle East where they just create islands out of nowhere. I don't know how they do it. They have a lot of sand. They can borrow some sand from the Middle East, pour it into the marina, create some extra land.
But then Tom Brady's yacht wouldn't be able to park.
I don't care,
right
Tom. Tom, I need a racetrack. I need an area where they can actually overtake.
They should build out into the water.
They should build it out into the water. Put a straight out into the water, or a big old loop that's like it should be as wide as the 9 lanes in Anaheim down to Disneyland.
Here's the problem.
Just please give
Monaco
me something.
Doesn't have enough money because it's a tax burden refuge or whatever the heck.
I think they have money.
Well, they have people with money. Does Monaco's like 0.5? Is it like half a square mile or something?
There's no income tax. It doesn't mean that there's no tax. Period. No, it's tiny. There's a lot of money there.
There's a lot of money there. There's no income tax.
There's no income tax. It's different.
What should we expect from Monaco next week?
Nothing. You should expect nothing. You should be an incredible qualifying session.
Who though is going to qualify? Like looking at this week,
Max. I got to be honest.
Oh yeah, last year. I mean, he was
insane.
Max is going to.
That is the one good thing about Monaco is that qualifying is one of the craziest things to watch.
Yeah,
the race is over on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am hoping for some weather. I'm hoping for some rain. I'm hoping for
some jeopardy. That'd be nice.
Jeopardy. Maybe a lightning strike here or there would be cool. Like just anything.
Yeah.
To please, but not too much rain where they shut down the whole freaking
ask
track.
Lance Stroll to hold up a metal rod.
Yeah.
Drive around.
Wow. Wow. That's a little crazy even for me.
It's a little dark for our Canadian brothers.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
So you're going Max is going to just
Max is going to do it. I think Lando and Piastri will obviously be there. The only person that I think could possibly pop up is if Russell or Chuck just pulls something out of his hat, because both of them do really, really well in qualifying.
Yeah. I'm looking out for Williams. I'm interested if their qualifying pace again is true. If again today it was, or this weekend they had incredible qualifying pace. They had great race pace. I'm looking for them to be kind of the wild card in the top 10.
I'm sorry, I just realized that it actually might be a good race.
Yeah,
because we have 6 rookies at Monaco.
It's a lot of rookies.
That's a lot of crashes.
I'm hoping for
there's gonna be red flags.
I'm hoping
all
for
day.
a Schumacher cuts his car in half.
His Haas in half. Oh my gosh! Cut to when Schumacher cut his Haas in half, and everyone drove by and was like, "How did that even happen?
How is this possible? That just millions is lost in this one."
Yes.
Yeah. So that's some jeopardy. We got some weather, potentially some crashes. Mixes things up a little bit.
Yeah. But other than that, it's going to be Monaco, which is going to be everybody in the media telling you how important this race is from a historical perspective. Everyone's going to be saying how much every single driver wants to win it.
Money.
Everyone's going to be saying this, that, or the other. And all that means is get prepared to watch absolutely nothing happen on Sunday.
Yeah.
Boring.
But the one race, though, that I was excited for that I was not expecting was this weekend.
Yeah.
Imola.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Imola next week.
Was a fantastic race. I hope they keep it on the track. I hope they keep it on the calendar.
Yeah, and I think what will be cool about next year is that the cars are smaller, so it could actually provide an opportunity for some extra jeopardy. But we'll have to wait for 2026 for that. Friends, we will see you next week as we debrief what's clearly going to be an extremely riveting race.
We're just going to have our podcast episode on Saturday because it's done.
We actually should do that.
We should just do it. Just call it early.
Hey, yeah, the race was fine, whatever. Let's talk about qualifying, though. That'd be amazing. All right, we'll see you next week on F1 Rolling Start.
Thanks, folks. See ya.